Who's a better leader of his party, Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer? This topic came up briefly in my conversation with Danielle in the previous episode, and at first glance it may seem that the answer is obviously Schumer. Sometimes as Republicans we think, wow, the Democrats are just so much better at the game of politics, so much tougher, so much more savvy, more ruthless. And that may be true in general, but let's look at this matter a little more closely. True, Schumer is more flamboyant than McConnell. That's not a close call. Schumer is more media sophisticated, and of course he has media adulation comes easily to Schumer. It's not so easy for McConnell to get. McConnell seems, by contrast, a kind of a plodder. He's almost like a turtle in a shell. He speaks in a relative monotone. He rarely smiles except with the kind of ironic smile that is almost as if to say, why am I even really smiling here? So it seems to be hands down for Schumer. But then you actually look at Schumer's actions and McConnell's actions. Let's notice that McConnell, under very difficult circumstances, has held the Republican Party together. Now, he's done it in a way that some of us may not always approve of. When there were MAGA attacks on Republican moderates, even Republican rhinos, even on people like Murkowski and Mitt Romney, essentially McConnell rallied to their defense. And McConnell's reasoning, I believe, was not that I'm McConnell, I'm a rhino, but rather I'm going to need these guys. There are times when we need a unified Republican blockade, particularly in the circumstances we find ourselves now after the Georgia debacle, where the Democrats essentially have a tie in the Senate. McConnell needs all his team. And you know what? Most of the time, he's able to hold the team together. Now, contrast this with this bizarre behavior by Schumer. So Schumer has decided to go along, at least tacitly go along, with progressive attacks on Manchin and Sinema. Schumer has basically said that he refuses to condemn the idea, which has come from people like Bernie Sanders, that these people should be primaried. In fact, Bernie Sanders implied, Bernie Sanders, will support the leftists running up against Manchin and Sinema and getting rid of them. By the way, these are both in states that would be very difficult for a leftist to win on the Democratic ticket. So I think that's politically dumb of Schumer, because he needs Manchin and Sinema no less than McConnell needs Romney and Murkowski. The other thing that Schumer does is he holds votes when he knows he's going to lose. So he's been doing this. He did this on the so-called second. He held a vote on the Voting Act and lost 52-48. He's been talking about holding a similar vote on the Build Back Better bill, the sort of second infrastructure bill. That would probably go down to the exact same fate. He hasn't held a vote yet, and I don't know if he will, but he's been threatening to do it. I'm going to get everybody on the record. Who cares? Manchin doesn't mind being on the record. The vast majority of his constituents are against this boondoggle. So what you see, and by the way, contrast Schumer with Nancy Pelosi, who's more shrewd. Nancy Pelosi is kind of famous for saying, listen, I will not bring a bill to the floor for a vote unless I know what the outcome's going to be, unless I know that I'm going to win. So she only plays when her vote counters, who are actually pretty good, have counted enough votes for there to be a success. It seems that by comparison with Pelosi, Schumer is a kind of a dummy. I'm going to hold the vote anyway. Let these people go on the record. I think it turns out that Schumer is in a very tight situation in the Senate, not proving to be quite as effective as Pelosi or as McConnell. And if the Biden agenda is being successfully resisted for the most part, which I think it is, good news for us, part of the reason is the ineptitude of one Chuck Schumer.